It is a fact that mindset can influence your work. It can be a negative influence or it can be a positive influence. The key here is it's up to you. Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a podcast about women who work in sports. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake. After 15 years of working for 3 major league teams, including the Boston Red Sox, Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Chicago Cubs, I discovered the one thing I loved the most was helping women in sports shatter glass ceilings and take their seat at the table. I loved it so much that I made a business out of it. I have the honor of coaching high-performing women in the sports and entertainment industry and supporting them as they go after exactly what they want in their career. So if you are feeling tired of waiting on the sidelines, done being overlooked for promotions, and you're ready to pull ahead of the pack and take your career to the next level, girl, I'm here for it. I also created the Game of Her Own podcast to support you as well. We are here to share the stories of incredible women who work in sports and entertainment. These leaders and trailblazers will inspire you with their success and the lessons they've learned along the way to the top. Ladies, there is nothing like women empowering women. I am so honored you're here. How would you rate your 2021? How'd you do? Did you reach all the goals that you set out to accomplish? Let me ask you this. Did you get knocked down? Did you get back up? And were you stronger? I know all of you had some wins this year, some big, some small, but did you celebrate? Did you give yourself a pat on the back? I know people say that and it sounds silly, but really, did you acknowledge the great work that you did? Did you write them down? Because you know when you have wins in January, you forget them by the time December comes around or October comes around when it's time to write your performance review, which I hate doing. By the way, I don't know if you guys do too. Listen, I know you also had some setbacks, right? Some obstacles or challenges in 2021. My question for you is, how did you handle them? It's so crazy how we forget our wins, right? Big or small, and focus on these misses that we had. They just sometimes consume you. Now, listen, I'm a big believer in acknowledging your negative emotions, sitting with them, and trying to understand why you're feeling that way. What I don't believe is allowing yourself to just sort of set up shop and live in that space. Don't beat yourself up for having a miss. Don't beat yourself up for failing. Don't beat yourself up for fucking up. It happens. It is a part of life. What I want to talk about today is the value of having a growth mindset and how that it's 100% going to help you accelerate your career. It's going to help you when you hit those setbacks, and it's also going to help you go further, faster. I'm going to share 7 easy ways for you to have a growth mindset. You can start these in 2022. If I were you, I'd start them right now when you're listening to this. If you have a piece of paper, pad, write these things down. You know what's even better is if you write them down now and score yourself on how you do with those, and then go back and look at them at least once a quarter. My strong recommendation really would be to look at them every month. And if you are an overachiever, at the end of every week, at least every 2 weeks. But for real, I understand time. Like you have your personal life, your professional life. All of a sudden, it's like, wait, I can't, the day is gone. And the last thing I want to do is look at this mindset scorecard that I made for myself, that I listened to Jahaan and I believed in it when I was listening to the episode. And now I'm just tired, or it's Friday. So at least set it up for quarterly. That's like a bare minimum. Monthly, you're doing really well. And then weekly, you're my overachiever and I love it. But just rate yourself and see how you're doing on these things and keep working at it. All right, Game of Her Own listeners, let's do this. If you listen to my past episodes, you know that I love talking about mindset. It is a fact that mindset can influence your work. It can be a negative influence or it can be a positive influence. The key here is it's up to you. P.S. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. Glad you're here. Before we jump into it, I want to talk about the opposite of a growth mindset, which is a fixed mindset. You knew that, right? It is a fact that having a fixed mindset can cause you to underperform. When you have a fixed mindset, you believe you either have it or you don't. You only want to do the things that you're really good at doing. You ignore feedback or take it personally. You feel like it's an attack. You may avoid challenges. This one, you stick to what you know. Oh, this next one, this was me. When you fail, you feel humiliated and unworthy. When you have a fixed mindset, you are concerned with looking smart and being perfect. Therefore, you don't take risks. Therefore, you don't always speak up. One more. You don't believe that failures will lead to personal development. Now, in listening to this list, did any of those resonate with you? Perhaps you were like, I catch myself doing these some of the time. And I'm going to admit it, me too. It's easy to fall into a fixed mindset. At times, it's like you go through different seasons, depending on what's going on in your life, how you're being challenged, how you're trying to grow, just all the different variables that are going around in the world or in your world, it impacts you differently, right? So think of it as different seasons and think of it as sometimes the things that I just went through. Yeah, you've been there before. And then you kind of snapped yourself out of it. If I'm being honest, throughout my 20-year career, at some point, I struggled with almost everything on that list at one time or another. And it's why I love coaching so much. I didn't always have somebody to help me course correct. Now I can easily spot when my client is getting in their own way. And I know that it's a result of their mindset and they have a fixed mindset. I can easily help them see what I see and help them course correct so they can go further, faster. Okay, so let's talk about how to make sure you step into 2022 with a growth mindset. Okay, if you're in a place, I talked about this before, if you're in a place, you can take notes. Take notes. If you're driving, please don't take notes. If you're walking, maybe you can take notes, but pay attention, don't trip. Take some notes, write this down, come back. If you're like me, I listen to some podcast episodes of others and I'll listen to it once. And then I go back and listen to it again when I'm in a place to like quickly jot down the notes that I want to. Listen to these 7 ways to ensure that you have a growth mindset. Score yourself. How are you doing now? How can you improve on them? I like to do red, yellow, green. Red means, ooh, that needs some work. Yellow means, I'm doing that half the time. Green means you're crushing it in that area. Give yourself a score. And then, like I said, come back, evaluate yourself down the line. This is what I'm going to work on with some of my clients is put action to it. How do I make sure that I'm going to actually do what I say I'm going to do? Setting the goals is one thing. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get excited. I write down my goals and I'm like, oh, I'm going to crush this. This is great. They are the best goals ever, but it doesn't matter if I have the greatest goals. I have to have the action plan behind it. What are the steps I'm going to take to get there? What resources do I need to make sure I get there? What's the timeline to make sure I achieve these goals? So there's a lot more than just writing down your goals. There's a whole process behind it. I want to hear how you're doing. So let me know. Link in the show notes to either email me, DM me, send me a message on LinkedIn, whatever mode of communication you like to use, whatever platform. I want to hear from you. So let me know how you're doing. Let me know how these resonate with you. All right, let's jump into these 7. I'm going to go through them at a high level. Again, reach out with any questions. I want to hear from you. Number 1, curiosity. When you have a growth mindset, you're open to learning. You're okay with the fact that you know that you don't have all the answers. If you listen to my episode with Jessica Berman, and I'll link to that in the show notes, she is the deputy commissioner for the National Lacrosse League, Total Boss. Great episode. Really enjoyed my conversation with her. One of the things she said, she's like, I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. I have lots of questions to try to understand that. So curiosity is going to help you. When I was working for, I won't say the team, but one of the 3 major league teams that I worked for, I noticed this one executive, all of our conversations, or if I was in a meeting with other people, all of the conversation, he just asked lots of questions, lots and lots of questions. And I never really, I was just like, he's not sharing his point of view yet. He's just learning from others, trying to understand others' point of view, just trying to gather all these facts and realizing that he didn't have the answers. Now, I didn't know that at first. It took a while for me to see what he was doing, but it was so extreme that I always noticed that this person was always asking a lot of questions. I will tell you right now, this person's career trajectory was, it's one of those where you look, you're like, whoa, how did you do that? That's one of the factors. Yes, I think this person is very talented, and that is a reason why, because they were always curious. So ask a lot of questions and be okay with the fact that you don't have all of the answers. Number 2, confidence. You have to believe in yourself. Believing in yourself and having confidence doesn't mean you're going to be perfect all the time. Doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. But just having that grounded confidence that you know that you can do this, right? It's having that growth mindset of, all right, I'm going to make this work. I might not know how right now, but I'm going to make this work, especially when you're trying something new. When you try something new, it's scary. I know that for myself, when I go into a big week and I have new things to do, all of my content is from scratch. And there's sometimes I go into a week and I'm behind and I know I have to get something done and I got to do it quickly. I know a couple of years ago, I would beat myself up about it. I just wanted to create something perfect. And I would get in my own head. And this is for the consulting work that I was doing. When I finally just stopped and was like, you have been doing this for close to 20 years. You're going to come up with something. That's what I would say to myself before I would go to sleep. And that became a habit of mine. And then that spilled over into my coaching work as well. You're going to develop something that's great. You're going to come up with something that's great. And then I always did. I knew it would come to me. I just needed to leave space for it. I needed to stop worrying about it. And I needed to be confident in my ability. I know what I'm doing. I am good at the work that I do. And that doesn't mean that I can't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that I can't learn. I can't be curious, but I am confident in my abilities. And that helps you have a growth mindset. Number 3, embrace your failure. Yes, if you have listened to past episodes of mine, you have heard me talk about this. You have to embrace your failure. Every single failure is a learning opportunity. It can be a learning experience. Listen, this is nothing new, but let me ask you this. When you fail, what do? Do you beat yourself up? All right, listen, when I have a miss or I don't achieve something that I set out to achieve, I beat myself up a little bit. I'm mad, right? It's just like when you, I don't know, for those of you who played sports, when you lose a game, you're upset, right? You lose the finals and you're mad about it. But then after that, after you have that failure, after your manager tells you, this presentation isn't it, you didn't get it. You didn't capture what I had hoped you would. This doesn't speak to me. When you're a manager and you feel like you're failing your team because you're not the most effective manager for whatever reason. What are you doing with that failure? What are you doing with that feedback? Are you taking it and just feeling like you're being attacked? Are you feeling like you're taking it personal? Or are you sitting with it and reflecting and accepting the part that you played in it? Nothing is worse than someone who always makes excuses when they fail and blame it on somebody else. And it's easy to do. We've all been there. But you want to sit, reflect, and make sure that you write this down. What can you do differently within that whatever project that you're working on? Let's call it a project you're working on and that you failed. There had to be some small wins within that. There has to be something that you did well. Or if you didn't and you failed on every aspect of it, why? Reflect on it. Reflect on it before you respond back to your manager who told you that you had a big miss. Right? Just think about what went wrong and what you can do differently. And if we tie this back to curiosity, you might want to ask more questions. I always talk to my clients when they're about to go into a feedback or a meeting with their manager. Get curious. When you get feedback, whether it is good or bad, ask questions. Get curious about where that feedback is coming from. Get curious as to the why. Number 4, self-aware. Know thyself. As you listen to this, you might think, well, yeah, I know myself. But gosh, I know that I am constantly growing. My clients are constantly growing and learning more about themselves as they grow, as they are put into situations where they step out of their comfort zone. That's when you become self-aware. You start to realize who you are, how you handle things. Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Do you need a lot of quiet time once you go through a big presentation? Okay, that's me. Do you thrive on the energy of others? That is my best friend, who is just like, she doesn't need quiet time. I don't know how our relationship works, but she doesn't need quiet time. I do. When it comes to work, I know I was just away on a business trip for planning for the Super Bowl. And it was 3 days of being on all of the time and learning a new footprint for Super Bowl and learning all of the, what I have to do. So trying to learn, trying to be on, trying to ask a ton of questions, trying to make sure that as a, consultant, that I can come in and do the work that I promised that I could do. I always know that after those meetings, I need a minute. I can't I have to block my calendar for the day after. So for example, I came back on a Tuesday night, didn't get until 11. So that's a whole nother thing. But then I also know, okay, I don't want to have any coaching sessions on that Wednesday because that's not fair to my clients. Because I know that I'm not going to be my best self. I know that I need a minute to just recalibrate. I need a minute to take a deep breath. I know that I'm not going to have the same energy level, no matter how much coffee I drink, no matter how much sleep I get. It just takes a lot of energy out of me. That is me. I didn't always know that about myself. And I always was like, oh, why am I so tired? Oh, why can't I find anything to talk about with people? Oh, I get it. I just need rest after I have something big. I just need to take that minute. Thursday, I was ready to go. There's a lot of assessments out there, personality assessments, whatever you want to call them. There's like Myers-Briggs. All of them are escaping me right now. There's a bunch of different tests you can take, strength finders. Here's how I feel about these. And this is my personal opinion, whether you love them or not. I never liked them because I always felt like they put me in a box and I didn't quite fit into them. Now, maybe you have taken them and you have said, this is me, and it spoke to you. It helped you understand who you are. Now, I will say, up until a couple of years ago, I felt that way until I took the Enneagram. I mean, this spoke to me. I bought books on it. Like this was my jam. This didn't feel like I was in this box. It was like I was reading a book about myself. So check out, and I will link to a bunch of them that I have heard positive feedback from other people. I'll link to the Enneagram as well. So I'll link to a bunch of them. It doesn't say like, this is who you are, and then you're surprised. It says, this is who you are, how you handle things, how you do your best work, how, for Enneagram, at least, it tells you when you're not doing your best work and like how that appears and how that shows up when you are not in a great place. That's what I loved as well. Oh, it really was like reading a book about me. So I will link to all those, and you can find one that helps you just understand some of the things that you're going through, who you are, and like put a name to it. That's what I loved about Enneagram. It helped me put a name, feeling, emotions, and also got some strategies from it as well. So I'll link to those in the show notes. But knowing who you are, knowing thyself is so important. Self-awareness is so important. You can also, think about it when it comes to setting boundaries. For me, my boundary was blocking off my calendar. I have a client who will not work after 5:30. Now, what's crazy is you hear that boundary and you're like, well, right, that shouldn't be, that's okay, right? Because you are hired usually to, in her case, right, she worked evenings and nights when there were games, right? She works for a team, but that was it. When there were no games, there was no work after 5:30. There were no events. She was done, and that was it. And she did not respond. And people would go back and forth on emails, 5:30, 6:30, 7:30, 8:30. Everyone's going back and forth all night. She popped in the morning. Sometimes she would give them the answer they were looking for, and they just kind of wasted their time because they were going back and forth, but they knew her boundary, and she set that boundary ahead of time. So sometimes being self-aware is knowing that, hey, I have this boundary. I'm not going to cross it. Setting boundaries and sticking to them, that is hard to do. All right, number 5, setting goals. So we talked a little bit about setting goals before, but having that growth mindset is realizing what you want to achieve. Write them down. Track how you're doing. For my clients, I have this workbook where we just write down, okay, what do you want to accomplish? When do you want to accomplish it by? Okay, what steps are you going to take to get there? What resources do you need to get there? Who do you need to help you to get there or support you, whether it's a colleague, a coach, a mentor, coworkers, whatever? What do you need to achieve your goal? And writing all this down will help you see, okay, I have these 4 goals and I can't do them all in Q1. I need to break these up a little bit. So it may help you when you set your goals for 2022. What I'm going to do is, this just popped in my head, I'm going to link to the goals workbook. So this is what my clients go through, they write down, and then together we work on the strategy to make sure they're going to achieve their goals at an accelerated pace. We're going to make sure that they're going to hit their goals, and that's how I support them. I will link to that workbook in the show notes, and you can download it totally for free to help yourself just set yourself up for success when it comes to goals. Now, I think you're going to know this next part. I already said this. Make sure you revisit at least monthly, at a minimum quarterly, right? You're getting things done. If you can do the monthly, put some time on your calendar, you're winning. And if you are my overachiever, you are hitting those every single week and looking at the end or the beginning of the week to see where you are. Number 6 is one of my favorite, using the word yet. That is so important. It means that you're committed to this continuous improvement. Ladies and some gentlemen, we are all on this journey of learning. This is a process. We didn't all wake up one day in the positions that we're in now. If you listen to the journey of all the guests that I have had on the Game of Her Own podcast, they talk about their journey. They talk about the process. Now, I think when we're all running a million miles a minute, we sometimes forget that, I look at that person, I see her title and she's senior vice president and she has it all together and she is such a boss. We forget that they weren't always like that. That's why I love to do this podcast and interview women who are in these senior positions, these women who are executives, because they tell you, hey, listen, I got fired before. I, didn't work for a year. I left sports for some time. I changed, careers in the middle because I didn't like the work I was doing. It's a process. So when you look at it, and I don't like to play the comparison game, you should only compare to one person, and that is you. What did you do 2 weeks ago? How was past you? How is future you doing compared to past you? That's important. That's the most important thing. You use these episodes when I interview women as inspiration. Listen to what they're talking about. And a lot of times, I started out as an intern. I am not the senior vice president yet. I am not the manager yet. I'm not full-time yet. Yet is such a key word to add there. So try putting that into your vocabulary. So when you are having that negative thought because you haven't quite reached your goal yet, put that word in there. Add yet into your vocabulary. Maybe let yet be your word of 2022. This is going to help you with that growth mindset. This means that it is possible. What you want to do is possible. You are committed to continuous improvement. Number 7, surround yourself with positive, inspiring, ambitious people. Don't get sucked in by negative people. They are so good at it. They are so good at sucking you in. Make sure you don't get sucked into the office gossip either. Let me tell you, you don't want to be a part of it. And it has this way, even if you are just kind of like, you give your one opinion that seems neutral. People who gossip like to take the words that you say and then use them when they're continuing to gossip. So-and-so, I was talking to so-and-so about it and she said this. It happens all the time. So you get looped into it. So just don't participate in it. I know everyone likes a little good piece of gossip. I used to be the gossip queen, but I realized how negative that was, how it didn't help me. It didn't do any good. It just sometimes got me into trouble because my name would come up in a place where I didn't want it to come up. Make sure when you aren't in the room and people are talking about you, it's about the great work that you're doing. It's not something stupid like gossip. What a waste of time. What a waste of energy for you. I could talk about that for days. Something I talk about my clients all of the time. I help them pinpoint where some things may go wrong and how their name's being attached to things that they didn't even mean for it to happen. So you want to attach yourself to successful people because you want to surround yourself with people who are going to make you feel good about yourself. People who are inspiring you to do great things because they're doing great things. Don't play the comparison game. Oh, well, this person's really successful, and so I'm feeling bad about myself. No. That's a fixed mindset. Don't do that. If you feel that way, take a minute, spend some time. I'll link to the show notes for my mindset workbook as well. Ooh, lots of free stuff in this episode. So I'll link to that as well. So take some time, sit with it, find out why you feel that way. But I see this happen a lot. Don't surround yourself with people who are not doing as great only as a reason to make yourself feel better. It's okay if you have friends who are trying and working hard and are not quite there yet. That's okay because you two are getting there together. Right? You guys are reaching your goals and you're always going to be climbing together to those new goals. That's okay. Don't surround yourself with people who might be lazy or might be not doing that well. And they're kind of, toxic, but they make you feel better about yourself. Don't do that. That's not a good reason. That's a fixed mindset. You want to be around the people who are working hard because they're going to rub off on you. You're going to want to surround yourself with the women who are on this podcast. Maybe go network with some of them. Those are the people you want to surround yourself with. You want to have friends. You want to have a squad, as they used to say. I don't know if we're still saying that or not, but I kind of like it, so I'm going to keep it going. You want to make sure you have a squad that reflects who you are and who you want to be. Because when things get tough, when you are challenged in a way that kind of rocks you, you want to make sure you have people who are going to lift you up and help you get to where you want to go. You don't want to be around people who give up at the first sign of struggle, because when you face the first sign of struggle, they're going to be the first ones to pull you down and tell you, it's not worth it. Don't do that. You're only going to get disappointed. So make sure that you surround yourself with positive, inspirational people. All right, friends, I gave you 7 strategies to help you make sure that you have a growth mindset, especially going into 2022. Don't wait. Start now. Think of this as like a muscle. You have to work at it. You have to start to develop it. These strategies are going to help you. If you Google growth mindset right now, there are tons of different things you can do. These are some of the important ones. These are the foundation. These are the things you want to make sure you do right. So assess yourself. How are you doing on them now? And then where do you want to go? What are the things you need to do to make sure that you can continue in 2022 to do this every single day, to make sure you are committed to having a growth mindset, because it is going to help you get further faster. It's going to help the trajectory of your career. And honestly, it's going to help impact your happiness, your career happiness. I loved talking to you about this topic. Let me know how you embrace this, how this resonates with you, and what you're going to do to make sure that 2022, you have a growth mindset so you can crush all of your goals. All right, friends, until next time.